Hello and welcome to week 5, the final week of AC1110 Accounting Fundamentals. This is the final week, and that means that everything does need to be turned in by the end of the week, whether we talk about late work or current work in week 5. There generally is no late work to be made up after week 5, so if we need to play catch up or make sure to get anything done, including especially the item that has the most points applicable, which would be the final, make sure to pick that information up, all that up in the last week, and get everything turned in by the close of the class. That said, if there's any circumstances where we think we might qualify for an incomplete 2-week extension, then I don't recommend doing that for a couple different reasons unless it's a last resort. One is that the incomplete does not go through all the time, and one of the major constraints is often that we need to have a certain amount of assignments completed, about 60% of the assignments, in order for it to be complete and be accepted generally. And the other is that if it is accepted, then we just have a lot more work in the following mod, and students often still have problems in the following mod. So if someone qualifies for an unusual circumstance such as hospitalization or something like that for an incomplete, then let me know and we'll discuss that process. We need to get it done before the close of the class, or it will almost surely not be accepted. So we're going to scroll down to the current my contact information is up here, by the way. We got name, email address, and the phone number. Best way to contact often is by email, given a couple times that we can then meet by phone and or screen share software. Scrolling down to week 5, the last week, current week, and last week, we have the familiar layout of the objectives, the topics, and the lessons. We will be covering this time Chapter 5. So in the last 4 weeks, we covered the full accounting cycle, really. And we've done the journal entries, we've done the adjusting process, and then we did the financial statements. Everything from this point forward is going to be really getting into either a specialized type of industries, different type of company types, which have a lot of similarities but have some differences, like a sole proprietor versus a corporation versus an LLC or a partnership. And we'll get into some specific accounting needs and specific type of accounts. In this case, we're going to go from a service company to a company that sells inventory. When that is the case, then of course we have the added difficulty of inventory. Everything else is pretty much the same. All the other stuff that we did in chapters 1 through 4 in terms of normal journal entry, normal type of transactions will be much the same. But of course now we will have that added difficulty of tracking the inventory, recording the cost of inventory when we make sales. Everything from the discussion forum on down, that's what we need to get done. Remember that the discussion forums are worth 21% of the grade. The strategy here, as with all classes, would be to try to pick up full credit of that 21%, 100% of that 21%. In order to do that, we're going to need a minimum of 4 posts. I would post more than 4 times to make sure to pick that up. And in order to pick up any credit on any post, we need to make sure that we're adding new accounting content to the discussion. Then everything, we got the assignments and the homework and the quizzes. Although everything is due on Sunday, make sure to take the quiz because it's worth the most points. So if you run into a time constraint, we don't have any real leeway for late work this time because it's the last week, so we don't have any ability to make up late work, but unless there's an extension filed. But we do have the final being worth the most points, and therefore if you run into a time constraint, don't get a 0 on the final. Go in there and make sure to pick up as many points on the final as possible. Remember that everything is, most of the work will be up here in McGraw-Hill's Connect, but although most of it is up here, it's not all listed up here, and although a lot of the work is not done down here in Moodle Rooms, it is all listed. Especially this Moodle Rooms assignment here. Make sure to get into these Moodle Rooms assignments, pick those up. If you haven't picked them up for the prior week, then go back and you can try to pick that up for late work as well. Gradebook up here, left side, grades are going to be due on, everything is due on Sunday. I have until Wednesday generally to make up the grades. Tuesday, as of the last week though, everything is going to be done by Tuesday. So Tuesday around noon, you really want to go in there, double check the grades, make sure that they look like you think they should be. And if there are any questions, let me know as soon as possible because the grades will be out of my hands after Tuesday night. and we have very little ability to make changes beyond that point. So I'm going to try to get the grades in there by possibly Monday night, but Tuesday around noon for sure. And then you want to go in there and just double check it and let me know if there are any questions at that time. We then have the end of course survey, which is basically the instructor survey. Charter college expectations of their instructors is around 95% on the surveys. What the instructor has control over in the course is going to be the things like discussion forums, getting back to questions within the forums or outside of the forums, adding material to the discussion forums, adding content to anything that needs to be known in the class announcements. What the instructor doesn't have direct control over are things like the layout of the Moodle Room shell, the tools we're using in terms of the book or the software. If there are questions about those types of things, the types of materials we're using, if we could put those into the discussions, into the comments, that would be useful, and then we can use those comments and hopefully get that information to where it could be used, such as the design team. So that's going to be it for have a great last week, final week, week 5.